Howdy and welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to do a little talking about relays and maybe something that y'all weren't aware of or didn't think of before, but just how do you control a relay? So in case you didn't know, this here is a small relay. Now this is about a 30 amp relay. It says 30 amp. I wouldn't trust it for 30 amps, but it says it's good for 30 amps. Some people call them a Ford Horn relay. Some of them call a Bosch relay. It just depends on who you're talking to and what kind of car they drive is what kind of relay this is. So now all a relay is a switch with a magnet that pulls the switch shut. So you've got a switch in there and a magnet. Poof. So this is a different relay. This is a 2-pole, 2-throw, double pole, double throw relay. This is actually a single pole double throw relay. Relays are all pretty much the same, but this one you can see through conveniently. So you can see, here's your common terminal on this one. Runs up through a wire, through a reed switch, and there's your two sets of contacts. So when I change the position of my pilot switch, changes the position of the relay. Okay, everybody clear? Thanks. So, in essence, with this relay, we can use this little bitty switch and this little bitty wire to run this blower motor. Or we could have run a fuel pump or, I don't know, fans, cooler fans, big Mean Mother Magnum lights, whatever we wanted to that draws a lot of amps. And we only got room enough for little wires and we can only afford a little switch. We can put in a little relay. Everybody clear? So for instance, here on the go-kart, these are self-resetting breakers. So I've got my feed wire coming in, I've got my breakers here, here's my bus bar, and there's a feed out. This is powering I believe this is powering my lights, and this is powering my fans. So I can flip the switch in the truck off of this little bitty pilot duty wire. This is pretty fine stuff. So I can use this pilot duty wire, flip a switch in the truck, it triggers the breaker, and the breaker turns on the fan. It's just a switch that operates by remote. So that's how you use relays. And this is how you use breakers. This is how you use a bus bar. Pretty simple. And this is just a plate of 3/16 steel that I've cut to fit in here. It's bolted to the inner fender and it's drilled and tapped for, looks like some number 8 screws to screw the breakers down to that plate and keep everything neat and organized. Now I've got room enough for 2 more breakers and 2 more relays in there. So I've got a total of, I've got 2 extra circuits run, 2 control circuits run as well. So I've got some room for growth. I may want to put some different stuff in here somewhere in the future. So now that we've covered all that, and here comes the train. These are all fairly standard on their wiring numbers. You'll have a 85 and an 86, that's your coil. You'll have a 30, that's your common. You'll have an 87, that's your normally open, and your 87 alpha, that is normally closed. And when I say normally means no power applied to the coil. So it's just sitting there, nothing's happening. 87A will be made to 30. When you apply power to the coil, 87 and 30 will be made. So I hope everybody's still following along. Now, one of the things that the real reason I think that I made this video is to demonstrate how I do most of my control wiring on cars. You might notice in here Get you in just a little closer. Okay, here's my lead going off to my blower motor, and here's my feed coming in from the battery, or actually from the breaker. So from my breaker feed, I've got a jumper that's going directly over to one half of the coil, the closing coil. So this closing coil has got 12 volts going to it all the time. The ground floats. So when we flip our switch, all we're doing is grounding this terminal out. Because we've always got positive going to this terminal. When we flip the switch, the terminal's grounded out. That makes that circuit, closes, the coil pulls in, and that closes the relay switch. But I'm doing that with ground. The ground is going through my control. And here's the reason I do that. Let's say you put everything together in your rig, and you're going down the road and you've forgotten to put a grommet in, and your wires get to rubbing up against something, and it shorts out. Well, you've got a 50-50 chance on this, okay? Let's say we short that side out. Well, that's the side that's tied all the way back over here to ground. You know, here's my ground point right here. This lead goes right to there. So if I short that out, so what? If I short out the other side, oh, doggone, if this gets shorted out, then the device that the relay is controlling just never shuts off. That's easy enough to solve if you're stranded out in the middle of the woods and you've just shot a deer and it's July and you're trying to sneak on home, but something won't, you know, your spotlights won't all shut off. You can get up underneath the truck, maybe, and unplug this. Yeah, like that. So, you know, that's easy enough thing to get you out of a jam. Your control wiring shorts out, the worst thing that happens. Oh, I just unplugged my relay, no big deal. Now, this is protected by a 20 amp self-resetting breaker. And these self-resetting breakers are pretty common. You pick them up at the parts house for 11, 10 bucks, something like that. And as I showed you on my truck over there, they're easy to gang up. And you can also, if you want to measure out your bus bars, just make your bus bars as long as the holes in between those. Bang, that's how you measure out your bus bars. Just like that. So I really like using these breakers like that, the self-resetting automotive style 12 volt breakers. But the real biggest part of the reason that I do this, do the ground control for my relays, is this. Now, I've used a piece of 28 gauge wire, is what this is. This is just some old 28 gauge that I had laying around from a project. Well, let's say that you're pulling your control voltage for your relay. Let's say that it's positive controlled, and you're pulling that control voltage off of your 20 amp breaker. And let's say, same scenario, you're going down the road, something gets pinched, something gets shorted out. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, our hunting buggy is afar. And you'll notice that breaker did not trip. Made a heck of a stank in here. But that never tripped that breaker. And the reason why is because it's a long piece of light gauge wire. So that's why I like using ground to control my devices. I can live with that. If something shorts out, I can live with a device that won't shut off. I can't live with the cab of a truck that's absolutely full of smoke or fire or both while I'm trying to run from the game warden. So I hope everybody kind of followed along and understands what I'm getting at with the ground control stuff. If you don't, say so in the comments, and I'll try to make a different video, or maybe just delete this one and start from scratch and go a little bit more deeper. But I think most of you will get the picture. And like I said, you're pulling your control voltage, your hot side is coming straight off of your high amperage wire. There's very little chance that this is going to get shorted out and smoked. And this wire is big enough to trip that breaker. You know, if this here gets shorted out, you heard the breaker click. You know, that'll trip that breaker. But this little bitty stuff you just saw, it won't. So that's how I do it. May not necessarily be the right way, probably ain't the wrong way, but it's my way. So give me a big fat thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. And y'all like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. You know how to do that. Till we meet again, y'all drive safe and watch for deer. Damn, it's smoky in here. Cheech and Chong movie.